Okay, the first match, jumping right into it, from April 30th in Ryogoku was Slex and Kai Fujimura taking on Alejandro and Yasutaka Yano. Now, this was an interesting match. Anytime you see Kai Fujimura and Alejandro on opposite sides, it's interesting to me because Noah really has been using them as a pair for quite some time now. The past couple of shows, they haven't been. But before that, it looked like they were really pushing them kind of significantly. Now they've been wrestling on opposite teams as of late. And here's Slex teams with the Gaijin, with the foreigner, Slex, who brings his own pair of sunglasses for Kai Fujimura and puts them on him. And of course, Alejandro and Yasutaka Yano thinks this is silly and ridiculous, and they're embarrassed and turning their backs. They just think this is a waste of time. One of the reasons I love pro wrestling now, because a lot of their wrestlers are just all about getting in the ring and getting things done, and not there to perform, if you will. Now, that doesn't mean I don't like Slex. Slex has charisma. Slex has a gimmick that works. Slex is an example of somebody that knows how to work a gimmick without it being stupid, without it being ridiculous, without it being over the top. He's just a cool, boisterous guy who thinks he's the best, right? And he pulls that off really well. And teaming with Kai Fujimura was another interesting for another reason. He and Alejandro are actually brothers. I've mentioned this weeks and weeks ago. I cooled off on mentioning it just with the thought that maybe Pro Wrestling Noah would run an angle revealing that or something, maybe, and no inside information on that. But I backed off of talking about that. But now I see Haisami's talking about it on her webpage, which is puroprogramstranslations.blogspot.com. Always where I get my news and always linked in these videos. So I figure if she's talking about it, I'll mention it as well. So this match was very solid opener. Again, Kai Fujimura and Alejandro and Yano getting tons of experience working against a foreign competitor. Because a lot of times they work a different style. Even if it fits the Noah style, it's still different than what they're used to being in the ring with. It brings experience to all three of them. And this match was solid. I didn't think there would be any way that the Gaijin, that Slex was going to lose this match against Yano and Alejandro, even though I don't really consider Alejandro a young guy anymore. He's got a lot of experience. He was in Congo for some time. Now he's out on his own, doing really good. But I didn't think that Yano and Alejandro would get the upset here, even though both of these teams were new at teaming together. And I'm sure Alejandro and Yano have a little bit more experience, if for nothing else, at least in the dojo. It wasn't enough here. Slex pins Yano again, just like night one, with the same move, with his finisher, the close of business. It was a very good opening matchup. Match 2 from April 30th was the Funky Express, King Tani, Muhammad Yone, and Akitoshi Saito taking on Kongo, Manabu Soya, Tarasuke, and Hajime Ohara. Now, what I found interesting about this is that the Kongo Juniors struggled a little bit for a few weeks, that being Tarasuke and Hajime Ohara, and they called in Suji Kondo from Dragon Gate to help them out and on the 29th, and they lost that match. Here, they bring their own partner in, the real solid official member of Kongo, dyeing his hair and beard red, which, I can't even fathom doing that, but, what a move of dedication that is from Manabu Soya. And they win this. I mean, Funky Express has been in a rut. Funky Express goes up and down. They will have a couple weeks where they will win, typically, though, not against any major, big guys, big main event guys. But they will go on a streak of winning some matches. And here they lose a match to 2 juniors and a heavyweight. So 3 heavyweights against 2 juniors and a heavyweight, and the Funky Express go down. So, again, they're back in their funk again, no pun intended, which at this point kind of is a pun intended. The Funky Express are in a funk again. But Manabu Soya made the big difference here. And what I'm saying here is that what Suji Kondo didn't do for Tadasuke and Ohara, Manabu Soya did do. So I've been, advocating for Manabu Soya to step up and do something huge. I'm not saying this was huge, not really, but he made a difference here and gave the win to Kongo, which Kongo desperately needs as of late. They're in a little bit of a funk too. losing matches that I'm not too pleased to see my boys from Congo losing. But here they pulled it out and got it done. Again, a heavyweight and 2 juniors beating 3 heavyweights is pretty successful. It was a pretty big deal. I like that a lot. Tadasuke was very excited after the match, shouting about it. Very happy with Soya. Again, he didn't point this out, but I am. Kondo couldn't help them get the win, but Manabu Soya does. Again, I just think that's a kind of an important issue and a pretty good matchup here. And again, Monkey Express goes down. The third match was Paris de Mal de Japón, Nasawa, Eita, Takano Jr., Kotaro Suzuki, and Super Crazy, taking on Stinger, Hayata, Yoshinari Ogawa, Chris Ridgway, Seiki Yoshioka, and Yu Yu Susumu. And this match was madness. It was just from opening bell to closing bell. It was just, this is what you get. I've said this time and again, and if any of you watch Noah regularly, you know this is be the case. When these two teams get together, whether it's a regular tag team, 3-man, 4-man, 5-man, whatever, it is just insanity. Sometimes they work it out to where it's an actual wrestling match, and there's a winner and a loser. Other times like this, coming off that 29th show, everybody's hot, everybody's worked up. Eita lost his junior title to Hayata. Ridgway and Ogawa won the junior tag champions from the Noah Junior regulars. It wasn't from Paris Del Mal, but still. So, Stinger's coming in here all decorated with all kinds of gold. And Paris Del Mal, of course, thinks they're better than Stinger. So it's just a gigantic brawl and fight most of this match until Hayata just blatantly kicked Eita in the groin, in the crotch. Just kicked him there. The referee called for the bell, threw the match out, but walked off and let those two teams fight. They took turns choking each other with Takano Jr.'s big bull rope and back and forth. Eventually Stinger, I believe, I don't remember who the last people were standing with their bull rope around the necks of somebody, but it was craziness. It was insanity. I have advocated for bringing the cage match back to Pro Wrestling Noah. I'm not a big gimmick match guy. I really like and appreciate that Noah doesn't use gimmick matches very often at all. But I think that it's time to bring the cage match in here, or War Games, or something. If there's ever been a feud in the world of professional wrestling that advocated for some big stipulation, not just for show, but because it's absolutely needed, it's these two guys, these two factions, these two units, Paris de Mal de Japón and Stinger, now that they've all added to their numbers and have grown tremendously and getting these ridiculous brawls, which can be entertaining and fun, but sometimes, can we just wrestle and fight and see who's the better team? I think it's time to bring something like the cage or War Games or something in to settle this, or to get this settled down to some degree. But here, this match was just tossed out. It's still worth watching, just for the sheer madness of it all. But it really wasn't a wrestling match. It was a big brawl that ended in it being tossed out. It only lasted about 9 minutes, which I'm kind of shocked it lasted that long. The fourth match from April 30th was a Segura Army, Sakuraba and Kendo Kashin, which is an interesting tag team, taking on Masaki Mochizuki and Don Fuji. Now, Don Fuji coming in from Dragon Gate to help out Mochizuki here. Wasn't overly impressed with Don Fuji. I'm not saying he was a bad wrestler, but there was nothing exciting about him. There was nothing particularly great that he did. I mean, he was functional, and I'm sure he's probably a legend or something that I'm unaware of, because I don't really follow anybody other than Noah. I used to follow All Japan and New Japan to some degree. It's basically just comes down to having to decide which company I like the best based on all the more time I have to watch wrestling. I don't have a lot of time. I have other things going on in my life. I'm a competitive fling golf player, and I work a lot. But here, I'm not a fan of Kendo Kashin, though what he did here for comedy really was probably something I could stomach the most. Him and Sakuraba came out in matching yellow masks, which honestly, it gave me Killer Bee vibes, which they're not striped or anything, but or like the machines, the giant machine and such way back in the day, although they were black and silver eyes and such, these were yellow and silver with some Japanese writing on them. It didn't bother me. They were doing it to kind of look alike, to confuse their opponents. It didn't do a whole lot for them, honestly, and Sakuraba's got ripped off just a few minutes into the match, and he spent time trying to cover his face like we wouldn't know who he was. So watching a serious kick-ass MMA guy like Sakuraba act like a goof because he's teaming with Kendo Kashin Didn't set the world on fire for me, but like I said, it was a type of funny stuff that didn't really insult me. I just sort of, okay, I see what we're doing here. And in the end, they actually win. Sakuraba and Kendo Kashin win when Don Fuji accidentally hits Mochizuki when he's going for one of the masked fellows and causes him to get pinned, and the Sakura Army win this. If you can tell I didn't have, it was only a 6-minute match. I wasn't heavily invested in it. I absolutely paid attention to it and watched it, but I don't know. It just, again, it's Kendo Kashin doing Kendo Kashin things, and never, ever do I find it entertaining. But again, if this was the level of his comedy all the time, I wouldn't be into it, but I could get over it. Okay, it was not something, again, that would anger or insult me, but it just sort of made me, okay, there it is. And it was what it was, the Sakura Army win. In the back afterwards, Mochizuki was sort of annoyed because after the match, Don Fuji actually hugged Kashin and Sakuraba. Right? They went to shake hands, and Fuji hugged them. And Mochizuki in the backstage is like, I don't know what happened. Fuji nails me, causes me to get pinned, and then he hugs our opponents, almost insinuating or wondering, was there something up there? I highly doubt the Sakura Army wanted anything to do with Don Fuji, because again, he wasn't overly impressive. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't overly impressive. But it was a comical comment from Mochizuki. But I'd like to see Mochizuki involved in something a little better than what this was. Match 5 with Masato Tanaka and Daiki Inaba versus the Sakura Army. Another 2 members of the Sakura Army, Rene Dupree and Dr. Wagner Jr. It's actually what El Hijo de Dr. Wagner. I've known what El Hijo or the son of Dr. Wagner Jr. I think that interprets, but it's easier for me to just say Dr. Wagner Jr. Now, Dupree and Wagner Jr. are an impressive tag team. I mean, I thought Tanaka and Inaba was an impressive tag team. I really see shades of each other and Tanaka and Inaba, but they didn't work as well together as I thought. I mean, they worked fine. Don't get me wrong. That they worked a solid match. And, I mean, Tanaka is Tanaka, and Inaba is rising up, although I see Inaba slightly stepping back a little as of late. I'm not saying he's a bad wrestler in any way, shape, or form, but for a time there, right around when he wrestled Marufuji, it really looked like Daiki Inaba was coming on strong, like he was going to be a major force to deal with in Pro Wrestling Noah. Here, he looked good, but he didn't look like the Daiki Inaba I've seen the past weeks before that. Maybe he, just didn't gel well with Tanaka the way I thought he would, or maybe Dupree and Wagner Jr. are just that damn good. I think there's a possibility of that. Both of those guys are huge, big guys. They towered over Tanaka, and even Inaba to a degree really took care of them without any problem. It wasn't a squash match by any stretch of the imagination, but it was clearly in the hands of Dupree and Wagner Jr., and to their credit, they are the former GHC heavyweight tag team champions, and they never lost those belts. They had to vacate them when foreigners could not travel into Japan due to the stupid COVID-19 not vaccine, but virus. And so they never lost those titles. So they're claiming, hey, we want a shot at them immediately, and we'll get to that later, because we never lost them. And here they look like a team that never lost them, because they took care of Tanaka and Inaba, not easily, but let's just say they didn't struggle greatly in a 10-minute match. The 6th match of the night was Massa Kittemia versus Michael Elgin. I was waiting for this. Look, I'm not going to address this every freaking time I talk about Michael Elgin, but let's just say this is the last time, and I'm not going to address it very much. I'm already muting some of you on Twitter for your inability to constantly badmouth, slander, ridicule Michael Elgin about a situation you think you know everything about and you don't know much of anything about. And I'm not claiming to be an expert on it, but I'm claiming 2 things. I'm claiming, number 1, that I believe Michael Elgin, and that is my choice, okay? It's my choice, just like it's your choice to believe whatever accuser you want to believe. And number 2, and this is the biggest one, I trust Pro Wrestling Noah. I do not believe for a second that Pro Wrestling Noah would just ignore the fact that they have some kind of troublemaker, and I'm being nice according to the false accusations against Elgin, if they were true, into their company. I don't think they'd just bring him in and embrace him and make him a big deal if they did not thoroughly investigate those ridiculous accusations and what Michael Elgin has proven in regard to them by spending an ungodly amount of his own money to obtain a lawyer and help him prove how ridiculous they were. Okay? So last time we're addressing it. All I'm saying is I don't want to see on Twitter or anywhere, and if I do, you're getting muted and maybe blocked, these constant, ridiculous, whining, crybaby tweets and responses to a man that you choose to believe something he did that I believe has been proven he didn't. That's your right. I'm not saying you don't have the right to believe whatever you want. What I'm saying is mute him. Go in and mute the word Michael Elgin. So that way, anytime Noah or anybody posts something, tweets something about Michael Elgin, you won't see it. It won't show up because you muted that word or that term. That's a way that you can do it without annoying the rest of us with your constant bitching about your thoughts about a wrestler you don't like. Okay? Can you just spare us? Anyway, this was a great match. I knew it would be. Kittemia and Michael Elgin were two bull of the woods guys. That's the Dusty Rhodes term that I always use when I'm talking about big hoss fights, because it's a hell of a lot better than saying big meaty men slapping meat, which I see some people saying, which I don't know what the hell that's about. That's one of the most ridiculous responses ever. It makes you sound like a weirdo. But bull of the woods, if you will. Battle of the bull of the woods. And this was tight. This was great. These two are very similar. Very similar in regard to their styles, in regard to their size, in regard to their looks. It's almost safe to say that Massa Kittemia is the Japanese Michael Elgin. Okay, and Michael Elgin is the American or Canadian Massa Kittemia. But Michael Elgin had the edge here, got the win. He gorilla press slammed Massa Kittemia, lifted him up over his head. Mark and Stu pointing out, has anybody ever done that to Massa Kittemia and ever? No, pretty sure they haven't. Michael Elgin was the first one. Really good matchup. The buckle bomb, such a dangerous move, legitimately. And that did not put Massa Kittemia down. He came out of that fighting. Finally, Michael Elgin does nail the Elgin bomb in about 12 minutes and wins the matchup. Elgin is here to stay. Elgin is looking great. One last point I wanted to bring up. I'm sorry to go back to it, but about these stupid accusations of Michael Elgin. You know how I really ultimately trust pro wrestling? A great example I can give you clowns that don't believe it. I don't remember who it was, but a year or two ago, sometime before the pandemic, there was an American wrestler, a foreign wrestler, Guy Gene, that came into pro wrestling and did something silly. He went into a convenience store or something and laid on top of a cooler, like those box coolers that hold ice cream or something that has to be kept cold. Not the stand-up ones, the box one. And he laid on top of it, and made some kind of silly comment. And Pro Wrestling Noah sent him home. It was embarrassing. Don't go to Japan and lay on a cooler in a convenience store. But this same company that sent a man home for doing that is going to bring a sexual molester or a sexual criminal into their organization. They're just going to, we don't care about these true accusations, which we know they're not. Anybody with a brain. We're going to bring him in anyway. Come on. They sent a guy home for doing something goofy in a convenience store because it was embarrassing to them as an organization, but they're going to do this, right? They're going to use your head. Michael Elgin, big win. Michael Elgin, consider a friend of mine. I've been following him for years, since before he was the Ring of Honor champion for some time. And if you don't like him, that's fine. That's your right. But just shut up about it already. Okay, we get it. We get it. There is a group of you that just think whatever the accusations were are absolutely true, no question about it. Okay, we understand. You have spoken that. I have now spoken my last about it as well. We're going to talk about what a great wrestler he is, though, so if you don't like that, you can always fast forward this segment of the show. Won't hurt my feelings. Match number 7. My God, I love this match. The GHC National Championship, Masakatsu Funaki versus Simon Gotch. I'm getting to the point, honestly, or I'm beginning to believe that Funaki is possibly the best wrestler in the world at this moment. At this moment. Wrestlers go in phases, right? There's times where they're better, and there's times where they're worse. They get in funks, like the Funky Express, like I believe Congo is a little bit. And they aren't looking as sharp. I don't know what happens. It's just cycles. It happens in MMA. It happens in baseball. Some wonderful hitter will be hitting 220 or something when he typically hits 375, 350. It happens. And then they go on streaks where they're hitting home runs tons of times as they're coming up to bat. An MMA fighter that hasn't won a fight in a couple of months or possibly 6 months to a year comes in and is a world beater for a while. Funaki is in the upswing here. Funaki is just since he beat Keno, he has just looked unstoppable. Now, Simon Gotch, and I put this on Twitter and he did like it. I think this was the best Simon Gotch match I've ever seen, and I've seen a decent amount of Simon Gotch matches. I have seen his MLW work. I have seen his Bloodsport work. I've seen a lot of what he's done. Excuse me. But here, he hung for just shy of 10 minutes with Funaki, who put Hideki Suzuki away in less than that. I think he put Keno away in less time than that. And there were people out there online saying, oh, how long is Gotch even going to go 5 minutes with Funaki? He doubled 5 minutes, bitches. I hate his hairstyle. I don't know who gets a mohawk and lets it hang down to the middle. He looks like a character from the old American TV show called The Munsters. He looks like a long-lost uncle that ought to show up. Maybe that's what he's going for. If he is, good job, Simon. But what a great job he did here. I mean, I don't feel he ever had Funaki on the ropes. He got a couple good moves on him. He controlled him a few times on the ground, which is saying something. But this match was intense. This match proves that you don't have to be a flippy, floppy, divey guy to be the best wrestler in the world, or even close. Masakatsu Funaki just gets in the ring and dominates guys in a fashion that just impresses the hell out of you. And sometimes you don't even know how he's doing it. He's just joint control, wrestling, jiu-jitsu type of stuff. I don't know what his discipline completely is, but whatever it is, he's the best. He wins this match. Although, Gotch stuck with him for almost 10 minutes. And look, when you get in the ring with Funaki and go almost 10 minutes, that's a victory in and of itself. I don't care what anybody says. After the match, Funaki says he wants another foreign opponent. Maybe a power guy. I don't know if he's hinting at somebody that's out there or what. Michael Elgin. The first one comes to mind when I think of a foreign power guy. I don't know how that would go. I'm a big Michael Elgin fan. I believe he's more powerful than Funaki, but I don't know if when you've got these big muscular joints, and I've lifted weights for years, and I'm not comparing myself to Michael Elgin, but when you lift weights, it makes you, no matter what an athlete you are, your muscles are a little stiffer, a little tighter, that you tend to be able to injure them a little easier when they're overly stretched. So I don't know if that would make a great matchup. I could be wrong, but he's calling for a foreign opponent, and he said maybe someone who's a power wrestler. So we'll see what that means. Match number 8 was the Noah Junior regulars, Daisuke Harada, Atsushi Katogi, Yohei, and Junta Miyawaki, taking on Dragon Bane, Alpha Wolf, Extreme Tiger, and Ninja Mac. I like this match a lot better than the match that involved Dragon Bane, Alpha Wolf, Extreme Tiger, and Ninja Mac on the 29th show. I felt that the 29th show, again, you saw in the review, I just said it wasn't for me and pretty much left it at that. Too many high risk, too many dives, too many outside flippy things. It was just way over the top, and I know some of you love that, but again, when I see stuff like that, I feel like I'm just watching like AEW, which I cannot stand. Granted, Noah did it, Noah tried it, some people loved it, I'm sure some people did not, because I know there are people who agree with me. This had a lot better psychology. This was a little bit slower paced. It wasn't slow paced, but it was much slower paced than the 29th match. And it just looked a lot better and held my interest a lot better. Even though I had to admit I watched it on my phone, because at that point I had to take my 3 dogs outside into my fenced in yard. Because that shit just happens. You know, like I said, I live a life. I do this. I'm not making any money to do it. You know, that isn't a complaint. It's just a fact. I do this out of a passion. So sometimes, you know, life gets in the way of me doing this, but I still do it to the best of my ability. Ninja Mac, I have spoken to on social media. Hey, thank you for following me on TikTok, brother. Ninja Mac, following me on TikTok. Why aren't you? I'm following him back. He's great. What he does, he is up there with Will Ospreay and Ricochet. Now, when he gets more experience, I'm not saying he's as good as them at this point, okay? But his aerial abilities are up there with them. And as he molds in more wrestling, which I can't wait to see him do here in Noah, I think he could be a huge deal. I think he could be a huge, huge deal. The fans took to him. He did very well. He helps win the match here for him and his cohorts, if you will, his fellow Gaijins, Dragon Bane, Alpha Wolf, and Extreme Tiger. I mentioned as well, I'm a big fan of Extreme Tiger. I love how Extreme Tiger doesn't rely on aerial work at all. This guy can go on the ground. I think Ninja Mac can too, but he does rely a little bit more on aerial stuff than the other guys. Although Alpha Wolf and Dragon Bane are as well. I'm fine with them. I'd like to see all these guys in single matches. I feel like I can't really judge these guys based on their full wrestling capability until I see them in single matches, especially here in Noah. I don't want to have videos sent to me of them in single matches somewhere else. I want to see how they do in Noah. And we're going to preview this a little later, so I don't want to go too deep into it. But Ninja Mac has a singles match coming up with Kaito Kiyomiya, and that is going to show me what this guy is all about, and I can't wait to see that. But the Gaijins get a big win here. The Noah Junior regulars struggling. They lost on the 29th. They lost on the 30th. I don't know what's going on with them. This was their show. The end innovation, the 29th was, and then the 30th they came to the mix show, which some of the juniors, I think it was Miyawaki, actually said he felt like it had a better chance of drawing more because it had, the heavyweights and the juniors, and they still lose. They need to get together and figure out what's going on. I'm sorry. No, junior regulars, when you were training out on the beach, you were lifting up driftwood, you were pushing boulders and running up hills and stairs, and you lost both matches. Maybe you needed to reevaluate that training or something, and instead of worrying about photo books, actually get in the gym. I don't know. Match number 9 of a gigantic card. It was time for Naomichi Marufuji to introduce X, his mystery partner, as they took on. And this was tweaked, this was changed because how the heavyweight championship match had to be changed. They took on Yoshiki Inamura and Kenya Okada. This was supposed to be Kaito Kiyomiya in this match with Inamura. The two guys that came up in the same class together. Instead, it's a young guy, Kenya Okada, who has not got a big win yet. Oh, I love him. The guy's great. But he hasn't got a big win yet, so this is kind of a lopsided affair in my opinion. Because Inamura, he gets some wins, but he's not been on a winning streak at any time. And I love that guy too. He's another Bull of the Woods guy, love him. Put him with Elgin and Kittemia. Then you'd have a 3-way unit that would be absolutely killer. But I digress. X was revealed. Who was X going to be? That was the question everybody talked about, and they could not believe it. It was a pretty big shock, although it didn't. Of course, there's people out there say, "Oh, this didn't rattle the world." Of course it didn't. It wasn't Bryan Danielson. Okay. I still don't know what this guy, meaning Satoshi Kojima, has to do with outer space. Someone's going to have to enlighten me on that. I don't know. Are they saying his offense will send you into outer space? Like, pow, right to the moon, Alice. I don't know. So it has to be something I'm unfamiliar with. But Kojima, who I like and respect a lot. Look, I can't. I got a little figure of him somewhere. I don't know where it's at. I got a little tiny figure of Kojima. I like Kojima. I really don't know where that went. Something I'll have to find out where I put it or where my wife did if she was dusting or something. I like Kojima. He came out in a Pro Wrestling Noah shirt. I hope that means big things. I would love to see him a full-time roster member of Noah instead of being used over in New Japan as another dad. He's a dad. Which just is another way of saying they're opening curtain jerkers who, if they win, it's not going to be, they're like the Funky Express in New Japan. And no disrespect to Funky Express, but that Funky Express is used that way. They're early in the card guys. They aren't called dads, thank God, who beat the juniors up and lose to everybody else, for the most part. And that is where Kojima is in New Japan, and he's better than that. Yone is better than that as well. I don't know about the other two in Funky Express, maybe. But Yone deserves better than that. And Kojima deserves better than what New Japan's been giving him. And he's coming over here, teaming with Marufuji against Inamura and Okada in a very good matchup. Lasted 15 minutes. You got to give Okada and Inamura credit for that. They looked really good. But, they're not going to beat Marufuji and Kojima. And they didn't. But it was a very solid matchup. And Kojima, is elaborating. He's saying that he wore a Noah shirt for a reason. This wasn't a one-off. He's taking this very serious. And I can't wait to see where it goes. We're going to see where that goes in just a few minutes. Match 10 was for the GHC Heavyweight Tag Team Championship. The Segura Army, Takashi Segura and Hideki Suzuki, took on Kongo, Keno, and Katsuhiko Nakajima. Now, folks, I'm going to take a second here to tell you that I was highly disappointed in this matchup. Now, it was 23 minutes long and very, very good. One of the best tag team matches of the year, I would argue. Anywhere in the world. I would argue that with anybody. Now, why am I disappointed? I hate to get to the end this soon. I like to talk about the match and how it went back and forth and how Nakajima controlled Suzuki in a lot of ways with his kicks and did that move where he puts him in a corner and stands on his chest, and really looked good here. I want to go on about that. I want to go on about how Keno actually smiled a few times. He's teaming with a great partner and was feeling good, apparently, about the possibility of gaining these titles. You don't see Keno smile. He smiled twice here, I think, in this. I want to talk about how Takashi Segura is one of the best wrestlers in the world and doesn't get enough credit for it. I want to talk about Hideki Suzuki coming back from WWE and being more motivated than ever. And I just did talk about those things. But I'm distracted and I'm disgusted and I'm disappointed because Nakajima gets pinned by Suzuki here after an underhook suplex, a big one. Threw him in the air a mile. He landed hard after a ridiculous battle of both of them kicking out of numerous things. And Nakajima gets pinned. So Nakajima loses his title to Fujita. Then loses his chance to get his rematch against Goji Ozaki. And then loses the tag team match against Suzuki. Suzuki's great. I'm not saying that's embarrassing or anything, but what's going on with Nakajima? What is Noah doing with Nakajima? Nakajima should be their star. I will argue that all day, every day. I like Goji Ozaki. I like Kaito Kiyomiya. There's the only one in Pro Wrestling Noah I don't like is Kendo Kashin. I love all the other guys. I have no problem with any of them holding the title. A title or the title. I really don't. But Nakajima has the best look. He's one of the best wrestlers, top 3 in that company, maybe top 2. His gimmick is cool as hell. Kongo is cool as hell. And this guy's just got to keep on losing as of late. I'm bitter. I am. Not enough to be angry at Pro Wrestling Noah and not watch and support it and talk about it. That would be dumb as hell. But in here, I'm really bothered by this. I don't know what's going on. How you can have a guy as good as Nakajima, his look, his skills. I don't know about promos. I don't speak Japanese. He's as good as anybody else, except maybe Slex. Who in the hell knows a better promo? They're all about the same. Promo strength isn't a big deal in Pro Wrestling Noah. Just isn't. Could it be? Sure. I would like it to be a little bit more, but this isn't American wrestling. And I'm fine with that. They tell their stories in the ring. And I'm fine with that. But Nakajima getting pinned here, and I'm a big fan of Keno, not like, if they had to lose, I want Keno to be pinned, but I think it might have hurt a little less. Keno's been shown to sometimes get beaten in high-pressure situations. I don't think Nakajima should be in that boat. I don't. I think it should be few and far between matches that Nakajima loses. But they lost here. The Segura Army retains. And they're a great tag team. Please don't get me wrong. I respect them greatly. I was thrilled when Hideki Suzuki was coming back to Japan to Noah. So I don't begrudge him. But Nakajima losing frequently as of late, I don't like it. After the big win, fellow members of the Segura Army, Rene Dupree and Wagner Jr., come out to challenge the champions. They do it respectfully, tell them how much they respect them and really enjoyed the match and give them great credit. And they shook hands and agreed to have the match, and that's coming up. We're going to preview that soon in this episode. But that's going to be a huge match. Dupree and Wagner Jr. are really good. And they're going against their own house, their own unit, the Segura Army. That's going to add some interesting elements to it. And Pro Wrestling Noah isn't messing around with these gaijins. They're coming in there getting big matches. We forgot to mention, I apologize, Michael Elgin, Massa Kittemia teaming up after that match they had. They decided to not wrestle each other from now on. They're going to team up. That's a massive team. That's a huge team. Keno and Nakajima is a huge team. Rene Dupree and Wagner Jr. is a huge team. Suzuki and Segura are a huge team. There are some people want to praise some American company for having a great tag team roster. When you look at these tag teams I just named, along with the other ones that exist in this company, Noah has a hell of a tag team roster. And this match is going to be something else. Rene Dupree and Wagner Jr. going up against Hideki Suzuki and Takashi Sugiura for those titles. And we're going to preview that soon at the end of the show here. And finally, match 11. Now, this match was changed. If you did not see me talk about it, you need to subscribe to my YouTube so you ring the bell, so you get notifications when I post a video, because I did post a video all about this, what had happened about Fujita getting COVID-19, having to turn in the title, Pro Wrestling Noah announcing that is their policy. If you can't defend the title on the day of the defense, you give up the title. There's no interim title. There's no tournament. It's whatever Noah wants to do, but you give up the title. It doesn't matter what the reason is, your fault or not. If you can't defend on the day of a defense, give the title in. I don't know what I think of that. I think there should have been an interim title. I do. But that's not their policy, so that's not what we got. We got Go Shiozaki facing Kaito Kiyomiya, who came out at the press conference when Fujita turned the belt in, saying that he wanted the title shot, pretty much begging for it, pretty much not, Stone Cold Steve Austin kind of getting in the face of the owner or of the company representative, but really boldly stating that he feels that he should get a shot at this title. That was finally granted. I don't know what I think about that either. I like Kaito Kiyomiya, but I think some other people, Nakajima would have a strong argument here, even though, yes, Go Shiozaki beat him, but Kaito Kiyomiya hasn't done anything overly impressive. He's got some good wins, but who's he beaten that really earned him a title shot? I don't know, but I also had a video on the YouTube page, if you haven't seen it, pleading with Kaito Kiyomiya to come in here with an attitude. Not asking him to be a rudo, a rule breaker, a bad guy, but I really wanted to see Kaito Kiyomiya come in and be something other than Go Shiozaki Jr. Because that's how it comes. Go Shiozaki is the typical puresu, Japanese, honorable, upstanding gentleman who comes in and wants to stand for Pro Wrestling Noah. That's great. I'm not knocking it. I'm not mocking that by that. I'm just saying I'm trying to inflect what he is, what he does. And Kaito Kiyomiya is the same way, only a generation younger. Which, again, I'm not insulting that, but so we had two guys, like father and son almost, wrestling each other, and it was a great match. Don't get me wrong. I thought there was a little bit too many kickouts. It was 30 minutes long. I thought there was too many kickouts. Okay, when I hate when any match in the world, any company in the world, gets to that point towards the end where both guys are giving every finisher they've ever used in the history of their career to each other, and both guys are kicking out of it. It just gets stale. It just end it. End it on one of those finishers instead of going another 5 or 10 minutes. I don't care. I'd rather have a 20-minute match that ends on a finisher than one where we get to see 3, 4, 5 more finishers from both guys get kicked out of until finally maybe the second and third iteration of that finisher works. I doesn't take nothing away from the match. This was a 5-star match. This was an excellent match. This was up there in Match of the Year considerations. There's no doubt about that, although I would still go with Nakajima versus Suzuki in a 30-minute draw over this, although this is very good. And I was really disappointed that Kiyomiya came in here with still being the young, honorable, stand for justice, wrestle for Pro Wrestling Noah guy, because, again, that's what Shiozaki is. So it's just watching mirror images of each other, wrestling each other to figure out who's going to be that person on top. And in my opinion, unfortunately, that was Go Shiozaki. Go Shiozaki wins it. And Haisami pointed this out on her news page, and I agree with it. That likely reflects that Go Shiozaki was going to beat Fujita. Okay, he was going to become the new champion, because he did here. They could have threw a curveball here and went with Kiyomiya, but they didn't. I feel like they should have. That's just my opinion. Just my opinion. And not because Go Shiozaki is old or anything. Well, he's old, but not in age-wise to me. He's old because I'm tired of him. Again, Go Shiozaki, love you, respect you. You're a great guy. You're a great wrestler. You're a great representative of Pro Wrestling Noah. I'm just ready for something new and fresh and different than the fourth or fifth reign of Go Shiozaki. And the young guy gets beat, and where does he go from here? Back down to the bottom, work his way back to I don't know. I mean, his next singles match, I think, is against Ninja Mac, which is going to be great. I can't wait to see that one. But, I don't know. Go Shiozaki then is challenged. He coming out to challenge him is, of course, none other than Coming out to challenge him after winning the title was Satoshi Kojima. So he's here. He's got the Noah shirt on. He says he's taking things serious, and he wants a title shot. Now, there could be an argument made here. What has he done to earn a title shot other than show up from another company? But I don't have a problem with it. It should be a very good match. I think Satoshi Kojima is going to show you that he shouldn't be on the bottom of a card being called a dad. And so I can't wait for that. I don't want to give my preview away before we get to this, but I don't see him winning this title. I would be shocked as hell if Kojima beats Koji Ozaki for the title, but I think he's going to show us why we want him in Pro Wrestling Noah, because he's going to give Koji Ozaki a run for his money and look like $1,000,000, and people who thought he was just a New Japan dad are going to be like, where the hell did this come from? Well, because that other company, New Japan, doesn't want to showcase their older guys, right? Because they're old, they're dads. Whatever. We're going to see this dad tear the house down for the GHC title against Koji Ozaki in the near future. I don't think it's until June, so we probably won't be previewing that show real soon. Definitely not on this episode. But backstage, Shiozaki did say that he would not really feel like the GHC heavyweight champion until he overcame Fujita, which is good. I think as soon, the moment Fujita, maybe give him one warm-up match, but the moment Fujita is back from COVID, and 100% medically cleared, give him a nice little warm-up match in a tag team or a 6-man or 8-man matchup or something like that, and then put the match together, Koji Ozaki versus Fujita for this title, so we can have a definite, undisputed GHC heavyweight champion. I think you absolutely have to do that. This show is a great show. Easy 9.5 out of 10. I liked it better than the 29th show, and I really liked the 29th show. I really did. I don't even remember what I gave it. Did I give the 29 show a 10 out of 10? I might have. If I did, this was a 10 out of 10. Both these shows were top-notch, must-see shows. Why would I ever even possibly give this a lesser review and say I like this show better? Kendo Kashin. I don't like Kendo Kashin. I know I didn't give the 29 show a 10 out of 10 because I did not like the triple threat match. So this was the best show. The 29 show was a great show. Both of these shows are absolutely can't miss. You have to watch them. Please. If you're not subscribed to Wrestle Universe and you're just like watching my podcast and reading Haisami's page, if you're really that, financially careful or whatever, or in a tricky situation and you can't afford like $8 a month, which is basically what Wrestle Universe is, I'm sorry. I really am. I'm sorry you can't afford something like that. But if there's any way you could cut something out, you can drink less Starbucks, you can, I don't know, something. Cut Netflix. Netflix, other than Cobra Kai, what the hell's Netflix have on it? Cut the Disney Network, Can't trust your kids to watch that. And subscribe to Wrestle Universe and support Pro Wrestling Noah because they absolutely deserve it. It is wrestling done right. These shows were great. Thank you, Pro Wrestling Noah. Thank you to those of you who checked this out.